Hey Clone Club, what an episode. This is Mel again, and I'm here to talk about episode 307 titled Community of Dreadful Fear and Hate, which aired May 30th, 2015. Now I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Girl on Fire for their comment in the previous video for 306 that I did. Greatly appreciate it, and I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one who will miss Paul and the Paul and Sarah ship. So this episode centered around Allison's world as opposed to Sarah's journey into the caster craziness, which we see no connection of in this episode. I guess that is the case because Sarah is now free and with Helena, which is basically what Sarah's whole goal was during the first half of this season. So let's get into Sarah quickly, and we see her sit back and let things unfold between Helena and Mrs. S, who has come to take them home. Helena wants Mrs. S dead for betraying her, yet Mrs. S wants Helena to be part of the family, saying that Helena can't just have Sarah as family, for Sarah's family would now be Helena's too. So basically, Helena can't just have Sarah and not everyone that comes with Sarah, so to speak. Hits were thrown from Helena to Mrs. S, but Mrs. S retaliates once before she quickly pulls Helena into her arms for a quick hug as she repeatedly apologizes and tells Helena to join their family, to leave all the grudges behind them. Quite frankly, that moment probably shows the most progress we've seen, because we have to remember that back in season 1, Mrs. S would not be hugging and accepting the clone that wanted to kill Sarah or who caused harm to Kira. Remember that car accident at the end of episode 108? I mean, it only happened because Kira went out with Helena and then didn't return safely. So anyways, it truly shows how far the characters had come to accept Helena, who was originally introduced to Sarah and the others as the clone killer. So originally, Sarah was supposed to meet with Benjamin, one of Mrs. S's people, but Mrs. S came instead. Now, I bet you that Benjamin didn't show up because Dean Winchester killed his alter ego Death. Get it? Because the actor Julian Richings, who plays Benjamin, also played Death on the show Supernatural. But I digress. So Paul's death was mentioned first by Helena to Sarah, who doesn't want to talk about it, and then again when Sarah tells Mrs. S that Paul is gone. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but it seemed like Sarah was deeply affected by Paul's death. At least he was mentioned and it wasn't just brushed under the rug. So at least I'm happy for that. Though I truly hope that that doesn't mean we'll never see Paul again. I mean, we didn't think we'd see Beth, and we basically did last episode. So anyways, next clone is Rachel. And we see her undergoing her round of tests with Delphine before she tries to talk to Scott about her father's book, which contains the symbols she painted. Basically, Rachel and her father had a secret code or language between them, and that's what he wrote his cipher code in, from the looks of it. Scott made it a point to tell Rachel that the book isn't hers and that her father, Professor Duncan, didn't leave it for her. When he said that, I thought he would reveal that he left it to Kira, but he doesn't. But eventually, Rachel does read and decrypt the message in the book, yet she won't reveal it to anyone but Sarah. Now, I'm wondering why Sarah, though, since telling Cosima may be more beneficial, since Cosima is the scientist clone. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I did, however, find it amusing that Scott was playing a board game about medieval farming, which oddly enough reminded me of the Game of Life. Does anyone remember that board game? I actually remember playing the electronic version of it some time ago. But anyways, let's quickly get into Cosima's personal storyline before we get into her part in Allison's storyline. Now, the first scene we see of Cosima in the episode is her naked in bed with Shay as they wake up together. Now, is it just me, or does it seem like Cosima lives with Shay now? Because she's definitely sleeping over a lot, and then we see her taking baths there too. So, is it just they're spending so much time together, or has Cosima basically moved in? So, anyway, morning gets interrupted by Delphine when she drops by to tell Cosima that the lab needs her urine sample to run more protein comparison tests between Lita and Castor clones. what a way to break the morning mood, but I thought Delphine's appearance was totally uncalled for, and Delphine just crossed the line between professional and personal. I mean, no one wants their boss showing up at their partner's house while they're kind of off the clock, you know? I mean, Delphine is the one who ended things between her and Cosima, and Cosima's just trying to move on from that decision with Shay, and yet Delphine is acting as if Cosima had broken up with her. It's getting really annoying, quite creepy to some extent too, with all the stalking and everything. I mean, tone it down. So anyway, Cosima wants Allison's urine sample to pass off as her own to get Delphine off her back, and I don't really understand why she wants that to happen. I mean, the sample is going to show that the urine is Allison's because of the DNA ID tags they all have, which we were aware of with Sarah pretending to be Beth. And then Allison doesn't show any symptoms of any respiratory problems that Cosima is trying to recover from. So that's two occasions where Allison's DNA will flag the fact that it's not Cosima's sample. But Cosima seems really focused on switching those urine samples. And I just really don't get why, if like she's supposed to be focused on the science, she's supposed to figure out what's wrong with her and what could potentially be wrong with the other leader clones. But if she's swapping samples and not providing accurate results, then like that hinders her discovery, doesn't it? But I'll get back to that and back to Allison in a moment. But Cosima's last scene of the episode is in the bathtub, and she tells Shay that she is sick with a rare autoimmune deficiency. And I believe that's what she called it. Yet before Shay could truly react to the news, she reacts to the bathwater turning bloody, and it seems like Cosima is bleeding out from her uterus. It seems like Cosima's health has turned for the worse again, and it seems like whatever Kira did to Cosima has worn off, or maybe Kira's distance from Cosima is causing whatever she did to wear off on her. Now let's get into Allison's story, which is divided between her election campaign and her drug business. Since there's so much to cover, I'll just talk about my memorable moments from this storyline. First off has to be the morning routine between Allison and Donnie, which is basically Donnie performing his self-monitoring duties for diet in the form of performing basic medical checkups like the blood pressure, temperature checks, and some routine questions a doctor would usually ask, like menstrual flow, headaches, pains, stuff like that, on Allison, all the while she practices her campaign speech. Now, I really like this scene because we've never seen this done before from Allison or Donnie, and if we remember, Allison signed that contract with Dyad back in episode 110, where she has to come into Dyad for regular testing, and yet the Hendrixes are contributing with their own tests along the way to give them further data to basically stay on Dyad's good side. I just thought it was great to see this, as it shows the clone story side to Allison's storyline, since hers are basically centered around her non-clone related life. Plus also every testing we've seen done on the show is always the professional medical type done by doctors and whatnot, but what Allison and Donnie are doing in this episode is basically what we do every day. When we feel a little run down, we perform the basic tests, we check our temperatures, we see if we have any of the basic flu symptoms, we see if we're feeling clammy, if we're feeling a bit sweaty, or it's like they're basically, not only are they representing the suburban lifestyle, but they're also showing us how normal people check to see if they're feeling under the weather or not. So I really like that. Next would have to be Allison's mother, Connie Hendrix. And right off the bat, you could see just where Allison was coming from, or why she turned out the way she did, and that her drunk ramblings about her mother from episode 108 were not exaggerations whatsoever. And we learned quite a bit from Allison's mom too. We learned that Hendrix is actually Allison's maiden name, and that Donnie changed his after they were married. Donnie Chubbs was his name before they were married, and originally I thought Allison's mom was making fun of Donnie when she kept calling him Mr. Chubbs. So that was quite a shocker. And then we learned that Allison's mom left Allison's dad, and that Allison's dad isn't really her dad. Well, neither's her mom because of the whole clone thing. But aside from that, because Allison's mom had chosen quote-unquote better sperm to use to ensure that her child got the best possibilities. So basically, Allison's mom duped her former husband into thinking he fathered a child that she conceived through in vitro, when in actuality, she got a clone embryo. Joke's on her, right? And then when Connie is faced with the idea of clones, she refuses the idea, immediately goes to thinking half-sister, with the sperm she picked being the same, and that she was conned out of the exclusivity of her sperm deal. And I mean, come on. Twins. She could have accepted twins being a possibility and they were just separated at birth, but no. Mother seems to reject that idea, and it made her come off as being a narcissistic in a way. Or was I off? Because she seemed to think that she actually believed that it was her egg that resulted in Allison, therefore only the sperm of Allison is what resulted with Cosima. But it was just crazy, unrelated, or not unrelated, crazy illogical nonsense coming from her. I mean, if you're faced with two people with the same face, you either think twin first off. You do not think half sister. And if it's not twin, then you go for clone, not half sister. So, anyways. But that's another thing too. Allison introduced Cosima to her mother, and I really thought that whole introduction would have turned out differently. I'm surprised it even happened at all, to be honest. But did you notice another clone mirror thing going on in that moment? Because back in episode 207, we see Allison and Sarah in the mirror many times together before Donnie sees the two of them together. And then in this episode, we get basically the same thing, only it's between Allison and Cosima, and that Allison's mother sees them together. I thought it was a cool parallel that I just wanted to point out. And another thing with Mother Dearest is that she seemed to get along better with Jason Kellerman than she did with Donnie or even with Allison, which I thought was a little weird and strangely odd. Lastly, about Allison's mother, is that when she called saying that she was having a heart attack, my initial thought was that it was a hoax to get Allison out of that event and miss her appearances, and that the hoax was orchestrated by Marcy, because Allison did make that comment to Felix about her mother always making these types of panic calls, so she wasn't truly shocked by it, like she was expecting it. So that's why I immediately thought maybe it was a hoax on Connie's part, because the timing of the call, with it happening when Allison was dealing with so much, it just was too perfectly timed to occur. And then she has to leave to accommodate her mother, and yet she can't leave because she has to be somewhere for the event. I mean, I really thought sabotage, yet Allison's absence at the event provided a great excuse to have Cosima impersonate Allison for a bit, since Cosima was coming to the event to pick up Allison's urine sample. And it was interesting to see how that impersonation was done, because not only is this the first impersonation attempt done by Cosima, but it was interesting to see how her personality would have gone about the impersonation. I mean, we've seen Allison impersonate Sarah a few times. We've seen Sarah impersonate many clones a few times, and we've seen Helena do the same thing, but we've never seen Cosima do it. But Cosima kind of sucked at it. I mean, she blew her cover too quickly with that lesbian comment during the speech. I mean, she broke cover very quickly, which is bad. But Cosima posed as Allison during the photo ops and during the first portion of the speeches, like I said. And she did all that for Allison's urine, which she never got because Allison wants Cosima to do right by her health. And hopefully Cosima will do that, and maybe now that she's bleeding in the bathtub. But I really like that Allison put her foot down with the sample and told Cosima that she really needs to get herself checked because she was also coughing more often than she was. Now, oddly enough, Felix does not meet Allison's mom, though he was trying to cover for Allison with Cosima's help. And on the drug front, Donnie was supposed to meet Palchi with Jason, but because of the envelope mix-up, his nose is in jeopardy with the paper cutter, just like Vic and his finger. Eventually, the money is brought to Palchi, but Donnie's basically a hostage until then. And as Jason tries to get the mix-up fixed, he keeps Allison's mom distracted while vouching for Allison to her mother before he ends the day with kissing Allison, which was actually Cosima. But man, did I call it. Even Donnie's jealousy was rightfully placed as he tried to establish just where he stood with Allison to Jason. But that didn't stop Jason. Even Allison was starting to learn from Cosima that Jason had kissed the fake her. It seemed like she was a little disappointed that she didn't get to kiss Jason again for possibly old time's sake. I mean, she kind of looked reminiscent of the fact that she could kiss Jason's lips again. And that little throwback picture of them from in high school, hilarious. Now, Felix was clued into Allison's drug business, and she was clued in on who Palchi was, and that was the same drug lord that cut off Vic's finger. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that after meeting Sarah and Vic, that Allison would even want to go into the drug dealing business. I'm still surprised that she wants to continue down that path. It definitely makes Allison more complex as a character, because the drug dealing thing was something I hadn't expected from her at all, but still a little confused as to why she would want to go down that path after seeing everything that's happened with Sarah, or possibly hearing it from Vic when they were in rehab together. So enough about Allison. Now, we didn't see Art, Gracie, or anyone connected to Project Castor in this episode, so the fate of Mark, Rudy, and Dr. Coetti is still up in the air. So let's move on to predictions. Once again, I still believe something's going to happen between Allison and Jason. It looks like it may head in that direction, and it will stir the pot in the Hendricks family. Due to Cosima's latest health scare, I think that will be her renewed focus in the remaining episodes, though an answer for that has to come soon, otherwise the season will end with another will Cosima die or not finale for her, like the previous two finales, and I kind of don't want that because that's kind of getting old. But then again, I don't want a quick fix either. I want it to be realistic. Well, as realistic as clones can get, if you know what I mean. Now, Helena mentioned Jesse in this episode, so I wonder if we will see him again or not. And there's also going to be a tug and pull thing going on again between Sarah and Rachel, and I just hope another pencil doesn't go flying around. Hopefully we'll learn more about Professor Duncan's notes and about Project Castor 2 without any more games between them or any lies, really, because both of their lives are at stake, in my opinion. Now, the promo I saw for episode 308 showed something more happening between Allison and Jason, and we see Helena staying with the Hendrickses as it's their turn, and we see Delphine talking to a new Lita clone. Maybe it's Crystal, who we first saw back in security footage in the season 3 premiere. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it or learned something from it. Don't forget to leave a comment below if you want to share your own thoughts, observations, and predictions with me. I love to hear about it. So this is Mel again reminding you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my new thumb art thumbnail art, for my videos, and share this with everyone you know within the Clone Club. Until next week, everyone. Bye for now.